A vector is a one-dimensional array of elements of the same type. When you execute this statement, R will create a vector, put 1 in the vector, and associate the vector with the name student_id. You can confirm this if you call the function is.vector on student_id. True is returned, which means student_id is a vector. You can also call the print function on student_id to print the vector. And the result printed out, 1 is the value in the vector. The 1 within square braces here indicates that this value 1 is the first element of the matrix. The 1 in square braces here is the index of the first element in the vector. The elements in vectors are indexed from 1 in R. In fact, even the result of the call to the is.vector function on student_id is a vector. The answer true returned is the first element of the vector. Therefore, it is at index 1. A vector can have many elements. To create a vector with many elements, you will use the C function. If you execute this statement, R will create a vector, put 6 elements in the vector, and assign the vector to the name student_IDs. The first element of the vector at index 1 is 1. The second element of the vector at index 2 is 2. The third element of the vector at index 3 is 3. The fourth element of the vector at index 4 is 4. The fifth element of the vector at index 5 is 5. And the sixth element of the vector at index 6 is 6. To see the vector, call the print function on student_IDs. The first element is 1, the second element is 2, the third element is 3, the fourth element is 4, the fifth element is 5, and the sixth element is 6. You can access individual elements of a vector by subsetting the vector with the index of that element. For example, to print only the element at index 3 of student_IDs, you will call the print function on student_IDs, but this time you will subset with index 3. If I hit enter on the keyboard, only the element at index 3 is printed out. You can do this for elements at any index. In fact, if you like, you can change the element at a particular index. All you have to do is assign another value to the element at that index. For example, for student_IDs vector, I'll change the element at index 4 to 8. I'll use the equal to operator and change that value to 8. So this statement will assign the value 8 to the element at index 4 of student_IDs. If I print student underscore IDs now, the element at index 4 should be 8. You can even assign a value to an element of a non-existing index in a vector to expand the vector. For example, you can assign the value 8 to the element at index 7. This statement will help me do just that. If I print student underscore IDs now, it now has 7 elements. It is also useful to note that you can use a vector to subset a vector. For example, for student underscore IDs, you can subset elements 2 to 5. To do that, you use the C function to create a vector that you will use to subset the element. This statement will produce the same result as the previous one. Always remember that a vector is a one-dimensional array of elements of the same type. You cannot have different types of values in a vector. For example, you cannot have numeric values and character values in the same vector. So far, we have created vectors with numeric values. It is also possible to create vectors with character values. This statement will create a vector, put 2 character values in the vector, and assign the vector to the names. You can call the type of function on names to confirm its type. The type of this vector associated with the names is character. You can call the same function type of on student underscore IDs to confirm the type of that vector. The type of the vector for student underscore IDs is double. The class of student underscore IDs is numeric. You can also call the class function on names. It is of class character. If you put values of different type in a vector, you will get unexpected behavior. For example, in this assignment statement, I attempt to put the number 2, the character Mike, and the number 3 in the same vector. If I execute this statement, although a vector was created, all the values in the vector will be coerced to character. So these 2 will no longer be numeric. Instead, it will be character along with Mike, and even this 3 will be character. If I print mixed values, they are all printed as character. In R, characters are surrounded in double quotes. You can also call the type of and class functions on mix underscore values to confirm the class and type of vector associated with the name. You can use the vector function to create a vector of a specified mode and length. For example, this call to the vector function provides 2 arguments, The first argument specifies the mode and the second argument specifies the length. This will create an empty vector of mode double with 5 elements. You could supply any other mode here. Just make sure the mode is specified within double quotes, that is, as a character. For example, you could supply a mode of character and that is character, and the result is an empty list of 5 character elements. Finally, if you call the length function on a vector, the length of the vector will be returned. For example, I'll call the length function on student underscore IDs, and the length is 7. So there are 7 elements in the vector.